What's up, homies? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Rancer Ghost, and today I'm gonna piss off every single one of you watching. And today I'm going to deliver a subjective analysis comparing the narrative strengths and weaknesses of both BELOBOG and XIANZHOU storylines thus far. The comparisons will come in 4 stages. Number 1, the characters. This means how invested and connected I feel to the characters that are in both regions. Number 2, the main plot. For this one, I'll be rating how effective each main plot makes expert use of its forecast for an engaging and well-paced narrative. In the XIANZHOU's case, I will not count patch updates against it and treat the story accordingly. Additionally, I will note how the story at present may impact future events. After all, if their impacts were to end now, both worlds would feel ultimately pointless. Number 3, the lore. I'm separating this from story because often lore is an accessory to the story. Think of it like a garnish for a dish. A story doesn't need lore to be great, but if done well, it can elevate an average tale to be magnificent. And number 4, the gameplay. At the end of the day, Honkai Star Rail is a game and it should be fun to play. And part of that enjoyment comes from how well the gameplay evolves from one world to the next. Allow me to explain. Fresh off a Heart of Space Station, we dive into BELOBOG with a basic knowledge of the gameplay mechanics. Between March, Himiko, and Dan Hong, a solid tutorial comp, we're prepared for the first true challenge. BELOBOG sports some unique mobs such as the underworld miners and the self-destructing robots that do big damage early on if left unchecked, meaning a healer was necessary. Thankfully, HSR gives everyone a free healer so they don't get overrun without buy loot. And I'm speaking strictly early game before a player has had the chance to strengthen March's shield as a solo alternative. And it evolves again during the future market quest with the addition of the IPC mobs, offering new styles of attacks based off of older units. However, the XIANZHOU offers new challenges in the way of CC and DPS counters. At this stage of the game, you can no longer brute force content with just big damage. And I'm not simply talking about the monkey and the deer. When I first arrived on the XIANZHOU, the Mara-struck warriors had a revive mechanic that stopped my Sela from being able to stampede all over them. The Mara warriors all made me reevaluate the strength of my lesser built units like Pela and Locha, and in that way it has kept the gameplay alive for me. And since I'm more attracted to games with a roster I can mostly enjoy, I'm giving the first W to the XIANZHOU for expanding my roster immensely. Now you think that the XIANZHOU comes out with a clear W in terms of lore, but hold your horses. Remember that I said lore is best used as a garnish. If lore takes over the story, all you're left with is a history lesson. To illustrate my point, I'll compare two largely unconnected stories that play out on the Luofu, Yukong and Vibrator Lune. For one of these characters, we get a rich and sad tale involving a deceased pilot, the nurturing of a young life in the hopes to avoid past mistakes, and for them to change their decision to return to that harrowing lifestyle following the death of a true comrade. And Vibrator is a part of Dan Hong's past that nobody is willing to move on from, himself included. The lore behind his forced rebirth and exile is richer than Yukong's by light years, but there's no comparable payoff. His transformation into Vibrator doesn't come with any breakthrough on his mental state, he just got stabbed. And even though I can live with that holy deus ex machina, it did not do his part on the XIANZHOU justice that he's received any semblance of closure. I know his story is far from complete, but ever since he arrived on the XIANZHOU, everyone's told him what an unforgivable sin the original Vibrator committed. He meets Bailu, who we learn through very scattered breadcrumbs, was his dead friend reincarnated. Even if just a little, him being told that explicitly will alleviate a fraction of his guilt over all the lives lost in her creation, given all the lives she's saved since then. But we don't even know if he knows because all the details were so scattered and he hasn't vocalized any true understanding to us as the main character. This garnish did not complement the dish in my opinion. Yeah, you might still think it beats BELOBOG, but hear me out. BELOBOG is only in its current condition following a war against the Antimatter Legion 700 years ago. And we've seen the fruits of their victory and recovery due to their own ingenuity, not the IPCs. The engine of creation is a fantastic feat of intellect that will bring about BELOBOG's revival. Additionally, there's also the literal mountain of robots they possess with enormous in-game potential. So, BELOBOG ties the scores as I move into number 2, the main plot. I just went over BELOBOG's in-game relevance, but between now and then, it can still progress. As we've seen, the planet is on the come up. That cute little bear Topaz finds is just one example. As the climate improves, more areas will naturally see life, and they'll have to explore and cultivate and settle those areas. I can already imagine a slew of future events tied to survival, but no need to get too ahead of myself. The main story plot of BELOBOG is neatly packaged with just a handful of characters who impact the outcome. Characters like Bronya, Serval, Sela, Natasha, and Topaz all bring heart, joy, tragedy, and hope to the BELOBOG story. Bronya and Serval brought powerful performances during and post Kekolia's reign, while Sela and Nat held it down for the underworld. I already know none of you predicted her to be the leader of Wildfire, I sure as hell didn't, and thanks to Topaz's interference, we're seeing the beginnings of a BELOBOG truly united. And Bronya has truly paved the way with the leadership she has built up ever since Mama Kekolia's death. I could really go off here, but I'll save it for the number one category. The XIANZHOU's main plot demands my review. Flat out, the XIANZHOU had a very turbulent pace with its 1,000 storylines. Between Ting Yun, Phantilia, the Disciples of Sanctus Medicus, the High Cloud Quintet, the Stellaron Hunters, this coffin, the fucking... The point is that the scope of all of the chaos on the Lafu was great. There are things that did well in the moment, things that are better in retrospect, and things that flat out did the story a disservice. But the Phantilia reveal is the best plot point they executed perfectly. I had all but forgotten about the Antimatter Legion until then, and after the death of one of my mains, I guarantee I won't again. And that's an extra bit of story synergy between both planets because now that an endgame is clear, the revelation of the robot army on BELOBOG is that much more impactful. All things considered, I'm giving BELOBOG the point here as well. I absolutely enjoyed the XIANZHOU main plot, but the fact remains that it bit off more than it could chew. Fushu is one of 3 characters used to great effect in the XIANZHOU story and makes the strongest splash because of it. Until we apprehend Kafka, she's effectively a background character. But once we do and we witness her A1 entrance into the action, her story impact hits upon the Matrix of Prescience cutscene. That moment is cemented as one of my absolute favorites for the lore, in-game foreshadowing, and changing my mind on Kafka as well. All of that is Fushu's doing, and after we get to see her tackle generalship while Jinyuen's AFK. And the quest with her in March was funny and built up both even more with us learning more about Fushu's principles and March dedicated to learn of her origins. But we can't discuss XIANZHOU characters without bringing up Jinyuen, the last of my 3 XIANZHOU titans. Jinyuen, he just straight up gives me Shikamaru vibes, and Shikamaru's my favorite Naruto character. The one thing that holds Jinyuen below the ladies is similar to Vibrator, in that we get a ton of his backstory in bits and pieces, but are given no true payoffs. I feel like every XIANZHOU character had some meaningful interaction with Jingliu except for him, and know that gathering between the 4 of them was more for Blade. Now, that can still change, but as of this moment, it hurts him. I still love him though. My 3 titans of BELOBOG are Natasha, Serval, and Bronya. Now, this section is going to be hard to do without spoiling too much of a future HSR tier list, but I gotta say this, Natasha is my favorite character. Her story was very engaging and critical to the underworld fight to survive, so it felt very rewarding to play through. The stuff with her crazy ass brother Vash made me grow to love and respect her so much. Her stance on it, even electing to study and perfect the serum, choosing to side with its intended purpose, over lamenting how it was created too much, that takes a rare strength, sense of foresight, and an insane level of compartmentalization. Natasha can be the weakest healer forever, and I'd still use her. Natasha mains rise up. Serval was a solid help for the overworld plot, having a view of Kekolia that, in retrospect, makes total sense why she chose to hide and aid us as much as she did. Now, the game did play with my emotions a bit when I thought she'd join us on the Express for a hot second. But just like when Kekolia died without giving Serval the chance to chew her out, I was left a little unfulfilled. Sad face. I was interested in Bronya from the first time I called her adopted. I could see the independent and courageous thoughts and plans she was cooking up. The battle between her and Kekolia was so much deeper than a giant robot battle over a Stellaron, and the conclusion was dark and beautiful and set Bronya on her leadership path. There's no need for me to go over that again, so let me just go ahead and render my judgment for the character section. But please do keep in mind that my verdict does not mean I think the losing 3 characters or any of the other characters introduced on their worlds are trash. All 6 of these characters I used as examples are in my top 10. Will all of them keep their spots by the time 2.0 rolls around? Well, that certainly depends. Anyway, the score for characters is going to BELOBOG, but it's a tight race no matter how you slice it. And with a score of 3-1, BELOBOG takes the W. But that is just my opinion. Please let me know yours in the comments below. Be civil. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later, homies.